Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, took to the White House podium today for what might be the most extraordinary 10 minutes I can remember. Here they are.
I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts. using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote-unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome. This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report. in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 intelligence community assessment that leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming president.
That is remarkable. Joined by Danny Pletka. She is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and she is abroad. Danny, you did not see DNI Gabbard today, but like you, I've been on Meet the Press a lot. I did 40 shows during the Trump 1 show, and it was Russia, Russia, Russia almost every week. And I always said, wait for Mueller, wait for Mueller, wait for Mueller. And the only time I didn't say that was when the Manafort stuff came out, and that was a separate lane. And I said, that's pretty damning, and it was. But they never had anything. And now we get this bombshell that President Obama was involved in the manipulation of the CIA and the intelligence community generally, although most fingers point at Brennan. I know you haven't had a chance to read or see it, but what's your initial question or thinking about this?
Look, I mean, I've never had a high opinion of Brennan. I have to confess to you, I think he was a political hack in a position that he should never have been in. And I was seeing that from my perspective as a Middle East person. But this should come as absolutely no surprise to us because the politicization of the intelligence community, the politicization of the FBI has been a thing for a long time. I think it's not if, it's just how deep it is.
I am hoping that Director Ratcliffe's referral of Mr. Brennan to the DOJ results either in his explicit exoneration or charges. I don't want it to drag on forever. Do you share my hope that we either get charges or a dismissal and we can go forward?
Look, I agree with that entirely. I am not a big fan of the criminalization of politics. On the other hand, when politics is actually being criminalized by people in positions of responsibility and power, the government has a job to do on behalf of the American people to provide accountability. And I don't think we have a really good sense. I'm with you, Hugh. We were sitting there being told, Russia, 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 they wanted him to do this, they wanted him to win. This is what the intel tells us. And there were leaks that always provide that additional veneer of credibility from the intelligence community that these allegations were very, very reliable.
Yeah, I want the audience to know Danny has done Meet the Press as much as I have, and you sit around the table. Beforehand, you're told the topics that are going to come up, and you try and get a little bit of a briefing the night before, and it was Russia, 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 Russia. And now, all because of Brennan. I think it's all, and maybe Obama, we'll find out, but the other stuff about Secretary Clinton, I've had her on the program. I have some great respect for her, but boy, if she was in that condition, we'll have to reassess that. Let me get to today's story, because this is new news. And for the benefit of the audience, Danny Pletka is one of the country's leading experts on the Middle East. She is senior fellow at the AEI and deals a lot with the Middle East. And her What the Hell is Going On podcast with our friend Mark Thiessen is not to be missed. Here's the headline from the Times of Israel, Danny. Iranian official threatens to quit non-proliferation treaty if European countries impose snapback sanctions. Well, go ahead and quit. They already did, didn't they?
Well, they haven't been abiding by the NPT for many, many years. But this is one of those international organization traps, right? So basically, the end becomes the membership, quote unquote. The end is not what the treaty ought to be requiring from its signatories. The end becomes keeping everybody inside the tent. This is how the North Koreans got nuclear weapons. And if the Iranians want to make this threat, then the Iranians are going to end up paying the price because, unlike the North Koreans, they rely on the international economy entirely in order to keep their country afloat.
That's a crucial thing. People need to understand what you just said. Can you unpack that? Why snapback sanctions? are such a disaster for Iran, and I hope they are forthcoming, but North Korea can blow them off.
So, first of all, for people who don't understand what snapback is the fail-safe mechanism of the Obama JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. This is the big thing that he told us was the most important part, which is that if Iran was not in compliance with the terms of the deal, that all of the international sanctions, not just US sanctions, not just European, but international sanctions could be reimposed and that they would not be subject to a veto in the Security Council. That's what snapback is, and the option to snapback ends in October of this year. So it has to happen, and the Europeans have to impose it. Now, why can North Korea say drop dead to the IAEA and the international community where Iran cannot? Because Iran has one export that makes any difference, that earns them all of the income. Their number one is oil. Their number two, I think, is pistachios, and their number three is oriental carpets. They rely on oil sales, and if they are under international sanctions, that means the Chinese, that means the Russians, that means the Iranians, that means everybody who's been Indians, is what I meant to say. That means everyone who's been buying Iranian oil has to stop, and that means that the spigot of money to the Iranian economy is cut off completely.
Now, it seems clear to me that the enrichment to 90% and all the worries that Fordo wasn't destroyed, but which it was, underscore the fact that they had already come close to breakout and were not complying with the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Is there any reason for the Europeans not to put those sanctions back into place other than there being weasels and weak-kneed?
Well, that's always the right explanation. But look, I
Yeah.
think that the Europeans want to. I think they're hoping that there'll be some last minute concessions on the part of the Iranians that will allow them to somehow get them back into negotiations. They do that understanding that the Iranians are most of the way there to not just a nuclear weapon, but to a weapons arsenal. They don't want to impose it. They're going to wait till the last minute, and the Iranians are going to throw up every possible objection, every game that they play so well. I think the Europeans recognize this is the last ditch, and if the Iranians don't come with something serious to the table, and so far they really haven't, then there's going to be snapback.
Will you and Mark Thiessen be doing a special edition on snapback sanctions of what the hell is going on here? Because I don't think anyone really understands what they are. I hear about it all the time, but I don't think people really understand how they work or what they're intended to do.
Right, and I think you're exactly right about that. Mark and I do a series of book podcasts in August, but at the end of August, that's going to be the deadline. That's when French President Macron said they are going to make the decision and implement the decision on snapback. So at that point, Mark and I are going to be back with everybody explaining exactly what this means, what's going to happen, and what the hell is going on.
Danny Pletka, thank you for joining me from abroad, however inconvenient it was. I appreciate your taking the time. Thank you, Danny. Follow her on X
Not
at
at all. Great to
dpletka.
see you.
Time for my relief factor, and I'm going to tell you the story in the next segment. Why I'm going to be taking it twice today. Did a really stupid thing today. It's Dwayne's fault, of course, but I may be moving a little bit slow for a while. And it's Dwayne's fault because he built the studio, and I tried to rebuild it alone. But there's my carrying curcumin resveratrol omega. I take it. When I tell you, call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95. Because when you do a really stupid thing, when you really, really do a stupid thing, and you throw your back out, you need Relief Factor. And that's what I need. I'm moving slow today, but I'm confident Relief Factor will get me back in the game pretty soon. Go to relieffactor.com, find the starter pack, and order it today at relieffactor.com. I got to tell you, Tulsi is really upset, the Beltway. I just noted on my X feed, and I would recommend you go to it, Hugh Hewitt. Opening show with full clip because this is pretty stunning. Lois Romano, longtime Washington Post Politico, inside the Beltway, lefty journalist, and not very well prepared. Quote tweets, fascinating. Now, where's the Epstein file? Okay, that is what? What do you think that is? And I said, wow, Lois, the DNI Gabbard clip has you really upset. And Lois replied, no, it doesn't really. It doesn't have me really upset. I just want to know about the Epstein file and what you've said about it. And I replied to her, Lois, I'm a DOJ alum. The DOJ cannot release child porn. The DOJ cannot release grand jury testimony. And you are being unprofessional because I've posted this repeatedly and I've said it many times. So you really ought to sit down and calm down. Haven't heard anything back from her yet. I'll keep you posted on Lois Romano and whether or not she is going to retreat. Now, let me take you inside the studio. This is a little breaking the fourth wall. I am a newsman. I'm a news junkie. But I'm also a wizard with electronics, not. So this is my studio. All right, this is a pretty good studio. There is a lot of technology on the studio desk, as you can see. There's a lot here. I'm about to scare every studio tech. I often think to myself, how could Stephen Colbert have possibly had 200 people working for him when I can run my own studio by myself? And the whole show is 4.5 people. Me, Dwayne, Adam, Harley, and half of Ben. And that's the whole show. That's the production staff. And we do 15 hours a week of AAA. We have bigger audience than Colbert. We have a bigger audience than MSNBC. We're coast to coast. We're on the Salem News Channel. We're growing every day. But we're in prime time, and they're not. I mean, we're in afternoon drive in the East, and so that helps on the radio side. And more people are turning to the Salem News Channel. So can you put up that picture again? You see how complicated this is? This is really complicated. Here is the problem. When Dwayne and Ben built it, they built it for a person who's 5'6", and I'm 5'11". So I had to raise the desk on which this all sits. And if you'll come back to my picture, please, I'm holding in my hand a desk riser. It is one desk riser. It is about, I would say, 6 inches. I got it up with the help of a friend, 6 inches, and I still couldn't get underneath the desk because they built the desk for someone who is 5'6", and put all this equipment on it. So today, I decided, I know, I'll put this one on top of this one, and I'll raise it 6 inches because there's a 4-inch variety of this. And I tried to do that myself using this is a pretty heavy wooden desk. It's a really good studio desk. And that's like Johnny Carson's desk. It's like when Don Rickles broke Johnny Carson's pencil box. So I got underneath the desk and I raised it. And unfortunately, the laws of gravity took over. And can you put up the picture of the desk again, Harley, the whole thing? Everything on this desk, and I mean everything, went onto the floor. Now, if you'll notice, there are a lot of wires connected to this desk. And the sound it made was similar to a sonic boom. And then I put it back together again by myself. And it's working. All right? This is Studio North. And so it's working. Moreover, we changed out the backdrop to this brilliant new backdrop designed by the Salem News Channel. And
you realize, of course, that John Brennan didn't spin as convoluted of a narrative.
No, I'm continuing on here with my narrative. You don't get to come out for 5 years and say that. I just want people to know the truth, that there is no Steele dossier.
Uh-huh.
This was built for a midget.
Uh-huh.
And
can you say that?
And it was, I can say that because it was, and I am not. I'm 5'11", and I have fixed it all, and it is now I can get underneath it. Let me just say a quick thank you to everyone who is helping our campaign. We've raised $250,000, I think over $200,000 across the Salem media for Help Texas, Food for the Poor. Sally Hernandez, the sheriff of Travis County, says words fall short when trying to describe the devastation of the flood. These communities are hurting, and it has been our goal to serve and protect them to the best of our ability. We are committed to the mission. So is Food for the Poor. That's why a gift of $50 sends another emergency relief kit down to San Antonio for distribution. You can phone in your gift at 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-4673. Text Hewitt, Hewitt, to 51555, or go to my website, Hugh Hewitt, texasbanners.com and hit the Help Texas banner at the top. Thank you in advance. Little Ozzy to send him off to his great reward. I am joined by Mary Catherine Ham, Fox News contributor extraordinaire, host of the Getting Hammered podcast, which she co-hosts with Vic Mattis. And I've got to say, before I get to Tulsi Gabbard, MKH, you are responsible for my bad back today. You and your DIY propaganda and your husband, Steve. Let me tell you, do you see this? Show her the picture of this set. This is my set, and that's what it looked like before I decided to DIY the raising of it by this amount. Now you can show her what I've got. I had to raise it this amount. Got to get there. Guess where everything on this desk ended up?
That seems like a pretty simple project, Hugh. What went wrong?
Well, I didn't realize that if you did the front two first, it would force everything off of the back and onto the floor. So if I had a video of it, it would now have 5 million impressions because no one
Yes,
could. And
it would.
I just did this because you are always DIYing it up on the Getting Hammered podcast about how you and Steve DIY this and Steve did that. So I thought I can do that. And it was bad. So why don't you stop doing the DIY thing? Why don't you explain DIY for the benefit of our audience, by the way?
Oh, DIY is just do it yourself, but we're cheap, and also I enjoy a little project. So I do a bunch of stuff around this house. But Steve also just yesterday put in 2 light fixtures within like 45 minutes. So
okay, well, I'm done.
We're killing it.
I'm done for the year. I'm not doing anything else because my back is killing me, and I got it back together. Now, I want to know about the little clip about you that went around this week on the set of Special Report, because it was very, very amusing. How did our friend Brett Baer react to your little going out to the music?
I'm not even sure he saw me. I actually did momentarily forget that I'm on camera during the outro music for Special Report, and it just kicks in and it kind of slaps and it's like da, 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 da. So I just like did a little dance, and I did realize halfway through I was on camera and I was like, oh well.
Go with it. I'm afraid of one thing. I'm afraid they're going to ask everyone to do that now, and I haven't got any rhythm, and so it would be disastrous. So MK, let's get to the important things. Colbert is gone. That's just going to ruin your night, isn't it? Every single night you've been watching Colbert.
Oh, I'm such a loyal viewer of Colbert. No, he's like, look, he's not good. He's not good at his job. He's supposed to entertain people. It's a late night show. It's not even the Daily Show, right? The Daily Show, you could maybe get away with being political all the time, but this is a late night show. It's a variety show. The format is suffering for various reasons. His audience is getting much older. And I think the response to him being canceled. So when they come back and they do the show and Jon Stewart is there and Seth Meyers is there and what's his face, the British guy who does the HBO show, he's there. They're all together. All
Oliver.
these comedic minds come together and they have all their writers' rooms that are paid so much money. And those skits with the GFY, which I'm not going to say because we're on the radio, is the best they could come up with over a weekend. Yeah. Like, do better. Try harder.
Well, I'm amazed by one thing in that story. 200 people work for Colbert. 200 people. This show is 15 hours a week. It is produced by Dwayne, Adam, Hartley, and myself, and half of Ben. And I obviously do it myself on the set at Studio North. And so 4.5 people, 15 hours of content. And I haven't got a writer's room. How many people work on Getting Hammered? 300?
It's just Vic and me, and then we have one producer. That's it. And I think that's the changing landscape, right? Is that a lot of people right of center, by the way, have been doing their own work for a long time without giant writers' rooms because we don't get the same budgets. We don't get the same legacy deals as these guys do. Well, they became so larded up and they had all these people around them. And then like TikTok and Reels and the internet reveal that many people have the chops to create content that is compelling and sometimes funnier than these writers' rooms are creating, and they don't cost very much money. They're not doing it with a bunch of overhead, and so it doesn't make sense to stick with this old format that's not performing very well.
To that end, Ruthless Podcast signed a deal with Fox this week to syndicate or whatever they're going to do. I think they're going to run it. Yeah. I don't know what they want. Porter Barry just told them to do more of what they're doing. You've done 3 or 4 ride-alongs. I've only done one. and I noticed they had about 100 people there. Don't you think they had 100 people at the Ruthless podcast?
Oh, you mean like not employed? You mean like as an audience?
No, I mean right there. I'm sure there were 100 people behind the camera. You're not going to give them credit for doing that on their own with just spaghettis.
We're all ragtag on the right-leaning side here, and they've made it look polished on the air, and I'm glad we're on the same team now over at Fox. I think they're a great addition. Excited to be alongside them and be one of their 100 contributors.
I wonder, do you think, and I got to take you an extra segment, Mary, I got to take you two, in fact, because I got to do about the Gabbard. Do you think legacy media is doomed because they're not fast, nimble, or funny? And they don't cover the news, they cover propaganda?
Yeah, I think they have bubbleized themselves to such a degree that they continue to act like entitled jerks who are, they think they're the dominant culture when they're not the dominant culture anymore, right? I would wager that there's plenty of other things on air that people watch more than Colbert, but Colbert had this feeling that he was Carson, right? He had this position that makes him this sort of like, I dictate what the monoculture is. There is no monoculture, and you don't have that power anymore, but they're so in their bubbles that everyone tells them that what they're doing is great. And then when it fails, they come to the rest of us and say, you have to give us all your money, whether it's PBS or NPR or Colbert taking money from CBS. They say, you have to support me forever if this product isn't working because I've alienated everyone. No, we don't.
No. The market is the market. And NPR, you mentioned it. I'll get your quick take before break. 30 seconds on NPR and PBS getting defunded.
I'd love to see it. So many people have promised it for so long. I don't know if it's illusory. I will always be looking for the fact that it might come back, but it seems like a huge victory. The Planned Parenthood thing as well, for things that I have been caring about for many, many years and have been promised for many, many years and have never happened. And the meltdown on the left is exactly what you would suspect and is proof that we shouldn't be supporting them with our tax dollars. We don't need to do it.
Well said,
especially for propaganda.
Succinctly said it. Mary Catherine Ham, did you see Tulsi Gabbard today?
Yes, I watched about 10 minutes of her in the press briefing.
What did you make of it?
Look, I've been trying to parse through this and figure out, because I have been critical of Russiagate from way back in the day and slowly had it revealed to me what a conspiracy this in fact was, not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy. I am trying to parse through what is new and what is not. It seems like there's certainly new information here from whistleblowers who say, hey, they wanted to change the assessment from Russia is engaging in meddling in this election to Russia prefers Trump and meddled in this election on his behalf. And some intel analysts said we shouldn't be doing that. Others said we certainly don't have the evidence to prove that. I think there were dubious forms of evidence used to prop this up. And it certainly feels, given some of these new revelations and her discussion of it, that the entire intelligence community and Obama wanted this thing to be true. This is what I always said about the press. I was like, you guys are coming to a conclusion before you did an investigation on Russiagate. All of you have decided that this is true. Well, it turns out that I think Obama and the intelligence community and the people in charge there, Clapper and Brennan, had decided it was true and decided to make it look like it was true by doing a bunch of really horrible things. And also, by the way, suppressing a bunch of intel about what Russia thought of Hillary and how they were using intel against her. I mean, it was all rotten from day one in ways that I couldn't even imagine.
And it appears to me as though at least Director Brennan knew what he was doing, and perhaps President Obama did as well. I don't think Secretary Clinton is involved, though she's the subject of this. Do you agree with that assessment? Brennan is really ground zero here?
Yeah, I think Brennan was dedicated to this proposition and that he was creating it as he went and leaking it as he went. And Brennan has lied to the public and lied to Congress under oath in the past. This was an addendum that I added every time I mentioned him when I used to work for CNN, and it was not appreciated, but I feel like it was important for people to have context that this intelligence guy had deceived you in the past, and now he's putting himself up as an arbiter of public truth and trust, and he shouldn't be trusted. It's quite clear.
Mary Catherine, before I ask you to comment, do you know Lois Romano?
I do not.
All right. Lois used to work at the Washington Post, where she was an editor. She was a senior writer at the Politico. She's a lefty. So earlier today, I announced opening the show with the full clip of Tulsi Gabbard. And much to my surprise, I got quote tweeted by Lois, fascinating. Now, where's the Epstein file? To which I replied, wow, Lois Romano, the DNI Gabbard clip really has you upset. And she replied, not at all. Now, what about the Epstein file? And I said, this isn't very professional, Lois. I've said many times on the record, they can't release child porn. I don't think there's anything more, and they can't release grand jury testimony. There are rules at the DOJ. What do you make of a lefty replying to this disclosure today by bringing up the Epstein files? And let's take it not about Lois, but about generally reactions trying to mix up scandals.
Well, I would love to look at Lois's tweets from Russiagate heyday, right? The thing is about, and this is what I mean about the left losing its currency and losing its cultural dominance. She thinks she has the power to choose what the important scandal is. She thinks she has the power to dictate who the correct victims are, who get the news coverage, right? And you're over here saying, like, I've covered both of these things. I myself have been skeptical of both Russiagate and the official Epstein story in various forms, right? But she's just like, no, we're done talking about that one that I got wrong. That's in the past. Moving on. I'm going to talk about the one that's convenient to me right now. Well, the press has done that for years, but they don't have quite the cachet and the power to dictate that as they did in the past. So we'll be talking about things they don't want to talk about sometimes.
To that very point, here is Jeff Zelny on CNN today, cut number 17.
We have no idea. I mean, this is hardly information that we should even be repeating. Never mind that it's, some years after the fact, 8 years more than that after the fact, but also just to look at the source. But look, this is the what this White House wants to talk about, and I'm not sure that we should spend that much more time on it, frankly. Yeah.
I mean, listen.
So, Mary Catherine, I'm not sure what he meant by look at the source, if he meant the White House, the DNI herself, or the fact that it's a White House Republican, a congressional Republican report that had all these comments about Secretary Clinton. But he's the White House correspondent, and he won't cover what's going on in the White House.
No, it's reminiscent of NPR's declaration that the Hunter Biden laptop story wasn't real and they therefore wouldn't cover it, and they lost their funding. So just watch out for that. I just think this is the opposite of journalism, right? You can criticize these takes or the information therein, but they had no compunction about just regurgitating whatever the intel community leaked to them in the past, whatever Obama leaked to them in the past over Russiagate, trying to create this false narrative. They were not critical thinkers about it. They were creating the narrative along with the intel community and the Obama White House, and it was very bad. It was the opposite of journalism. It wasn't the truth, and they don't want to talk about it now because it would reveal that they did a bad job then.
It was the opposite of journalism. Great exit quote, Mary Catherine Ham. Thank you. Follow her on X at MK Hammer. Listen to Getting Hammered and normally her podcast. See her on Fox News. Lois Romano does not know the first rule of holes. She keeps digging. When you're in one, stop digging. So 11 minutes ago, she says, Hugh, are you among the few who believe there's nothing left to release, meaning Epstein, and Hillary is not a president, so who should it? She writes who, but I think she means why. Should any of us care what she was doing a decade ago? Now, I got to tell you, lefties hate stories that expose them to be wrong. Lois is a lefty, but she's not a lawyer, and she doesn't know much about the DOJ. And I've responded again. There's a lot left to be released about Epstein. None of it has anything to do with Donald Trump, and there is no list. We would have had that leaked long ago if it was there because it was the Biden DOJ. Remember? The Biden DOJ had all the files. If they could have, after what they did to Donald Trump, really? Do you think that after what they did to Donald Trump, Jack Smith, 2 prosecutions, raid his home, the circus up in New York, the circus in Atlanta, that they wouldn't have released a list with Donald Trump's name on it? Do you really believe that we would not have it in our hands? So I'm skeptical about that. But more importantly, if Secretary Clinton had medical issues about which the intelligence community knew and the Russians knew, and the press may have known, and it wasn't released, but much more importantly, if John Brennan was actually manipulating the records and the IC findings in order to undermine Donald Trump and ensnare him in a special counsel that went on for 2.5 years and ended up no collusion, no obstruction. Let's remember that. No collusion, no obstruction. Bill Barr cut through all the crap, said no collusion, no obstruction. After the Mueller guys produced 1,000 pages of nonsense to try and obscure the fact that they'd spent 2.5 years chasing their tail and had nothing, there was nothing there. Donald Trump did not collude with Putin. Donald Trump has been harder on Russia than both Barack Obama and Joe Biden as president, and he continues to be, just trying to get a war ended. And the left is melting down. Lois Romano's just a lefty, Politico, Washington Post, just another lefty. And she keeps digging in public. First rule of holes. There is nothing left to know of interest to me about Epstein. Nothing. Zero. You can't release child pornography. You can't release grand jury testimony that will impair the guarantees given to the people who gave their testimony then. I just don't think anyone with any legal training has any misunderstanding about this. But a lot of people don't have legal training, and they want very much for Donald Trump to fail because Donald Trump is winning. He won again today with a massive trade deal with Japan. 15% tariffs reciprocal. American automobiles may now go into Japan and American rice. Moreover, another win for Trump today. The U.S. and the EU are closing in on a 15% tariff deal. So we're going to knock off, we've got China, Japan, England, and the European Union. I know we trade with a lot of countries. You're getting it done. That's why, let me do the market report brought to you by our friends American Federal. I haven't got the numbers pre-written down, so bear with me while I go and find them. American Federal buys and sells your gold, and they sponsor a market report every day. And you can call American Federal at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, or simply go to AmericanFederal.com. That's AmericanFederal.com. Nick Grovich will take care of you if you're going to buy gold. And a lot of you might want to buy gold. Now, today the Dow went up 1.14%. The S&P went up 0.78%. And the NASDAQ went up 0.61%. And that's because, hey, we're back in the international trade, and Trump is crushing non-tariff barriers to trade, like Japan not letting our cars in or our rice in. That's a non-tariff barrier to trade. It's exclusion, not a tariff. You can't get in. So that's over. So the markets are happy. We're gonna sell more and buy more and build more in the United States. What happened to gold? Well, oil went up a little bit today. I'm going down to find gold. Gold went down $43 today to $3,400. That's right. It went down $43 to $3,400 an ounce. So maybe you want to buy on the dip. I said that 3 months ago when it dipped down to 3,100. And I said it 6 months ago when it was below 3,000. Maybe you want to buy on the dip. I don't think gold is going down. That's because the dollar is being replaced in the world, slowly but surely, by crypto and alternative currencies and bundles of currencies. So king dollar isn't going to be king dollar. So what's going to be king? Gold. I do not give financial advice. Never have, never will. I do buy gold, and I tell you about it. I also used to buy stocks, and I don't have any individual stocks anymore. I've gone fully into mutual funds because it's just too complicated for me now. And by complicated, I mean there are too many companies competing with the companies I used to know. And I don't want, for example, to wake up. I made a lot of money on Palantir. I bought Palantir when it was $5 a share or something like that and sold it when it was 60. And that was my last stock transaction. Now I'm in mutual funds and ETFs, which is what dummies should be like. But I also have gold, and I buy gold every year, and I put it in the safety deposit box because I want to be diversified. If the world goes to heck in a handbasket, there's still that little pile of gold that I have accumulated over 25 years because I buy once a year. And I would recommend if you buy once a year or once a quarter or twice a year or something like that, just dollar cost average. And Put it in a safety deposit box. Don't leave it at home. Can't be lost. Cannot possibly lose it if you put it in a safety deposit box, and the grandkids can't play with it. Speaking of which, all of the grandkids are coming here next week. I have all 7 of them. After I had my disaster in the studio today. Want to remind people, this is Relief Factor Studio, and unlike most days, I'm taking a second one today because of Dwayne. Because when Dwayne built this studio, and God love him, I mean, he really does build a marvelous bit of technology, but he forgot I'm 5'11" and not 5'7". So I had to move the desk up and put it on these risers today. As I told people in the first hour, these risers, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, I thought I could figure out how to do it by myself, and I did.
Your previous backdrop would have made terrific firewood. I could have done that.
And I did not take the backdrop down, and everything on the desk fell off. Now, there are perhaps 30 wires on this desk,
Perhaps.
and this is why I have a guardian angel and why I'm a Catholic. Everything works, even after it all crashed to the ground, because I may have tipped the table a little bit with my
back. And you know why that is, too.
Because I really worked hard at putting this thing together the right way.
But I thought you just said I'm the one that builds the studio.
You built the desk.
I didn't build the desk.
And anyway, you're messing up my read.
I'm not a carpenter.
Now, you're messing up my read. I have Relief Factor right here. I usually just take it in the first hour, which I did. I'm taking it twice. Because of Dwayne and Mary Catherine Ham, I tried to do it myself, and I hurt my back doing that. Because you really ought not to lift a table that weighs this much by yourself and then do it twice and then do it 3 times. Anyone with common sense about physics would have waited for a couple of assistants to just stand at either end of the desk and lift. I did that the first time I raised it, but we didn't raise it far enough because Dwayne designed it wrong. And I just got to tell you, Relief Factor is what you need when you've done something like this to your back. And it'll be fine in a couple of days. Not trundling for a couple of days, that's for sure. Relief Factor, $19.95 for the starter pack. I normally just take it once a day, but I'm taking it twice a day today because I got a real jolt there. That was not good. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. But don't forget, if you're going to buy gold, do it from Nick Grovich and his team at American Federal. I think the market is going to take off, but I don't know. I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet. But I think these trade deals, this foreign investment, I think Trump's on a roll. And boy, does the left hate it. Now they want to talk about Epstein. Epstein's over. It's just over. It's stupid. And there's nothing there. There's no story. There's a lot of made-up stuff, but there's no story. And they can't release a lot of the files because they're child porn, which we don't want to release, because of re-victimization if you bring out some of those photos of adults. And you cannot release grand jury testimony by longstanding convention and court order and the rules of evidence. You can't do it. And so I'm not surprised that Trump said release it, and the court said, no, can't release that. When I come back, my phone number is 1-800-520-1234. What's your reaction to Tulsi Gabbard? I played it all in the first hour. I'm going to play it all in the third hour. But I just want to know what your reaction is, because it's got the left-wing journos inside the Beltway in a tizzy. The Lois Romanos of the world are melting down in real time, and they're not being particularly, they're really in a panic. They're in a panic. They're every night. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit about Billy Joel tonight. Nancy in Philly, how are you, Nancy?
Greetings, Hugh.
Greetings.
Tulsi is not an attorney, but she could be a good one. And I've always been a fan of hers, and I call her Dulcet Tulsi.
Dulcet Tulsi. Well, she had dulcet tones today. She was she didn't time it exactly right. She tried to hit the 10-minute mark so people like me could play the whole thing. And she went, I'm going to replay it in the third hour. She went maybe 3 seconds long, but it was pretty doggone well delivered. And I knew it hit. I knew it hit because immediately the lefties said, "What about Epstein?" It's going to be a poker tell from now on. When we're over the target, they're going to say, "What about Epstein?"
She's a force to be reckoned with.
I agree. Thank you. Tony in Wisconsin. How are you, Tony?
Hello, Hugh. You know, good prosecutors, when they're prosecuting...
Are you a prosecutor?
I am not, and I did not stay at Holiday Inn Express.
I was just wondering about... I just wanted to get that on the table. I myself have never prosecuted a crime, only warrants, but go ahead.
But in those types of cases, usually they don't go for the king first. They target the mid-level people, get them to plea deal and fess up information that gets the real targets up at the top. Let's hope that Gabbard and Trump and Bondi are withholding more information than they've revealed yet. Maybe on those 5 thumb drives that they kept. Maybe they had
Don't know anything about thumb drives. Don't know anything about it. I'm only dealing with public record. I believe that we ought not to dive into the innuendo and rumors that's playing the left's game. She made a statement. She's got the goods. What she said today is damning. And what I want DOJ to do, and I'll get your comment on this, Tony, I want them to quickly decide whether or not the former CIA director Brennan lied to Congress, and if so, prosecute him, and prosecute him quickly. And if he didn't, I want him to be exonerated because the implication is that he did. That's all I want.
Completely agree, Hugh. I don't think the thumb drives are rumors. I think that Senator Grassley released that in the information.
Yeah, but we don't know what's on them, and so
That's true.
So I don't want to talk about them because that's just speculation. It's sort of like people talking about the Epstein files, and it's nonsense. It's all made up. Everyone who talks about the Epstein files is making it up. They don't know what's in them. They have no idea what's in them other than what DOJ has told us. A lot of child porn, a lot of victim photos and witness statements, and the grand jury testimony is almost never released in anything, much less a suicide that's 8 years ago.
Well,
Tony,
to paraphrase,
thank you.
Ralph.
Lawton in Atlanta. Hello, Lawton.
Hi, Hugh. Always enjoy your show, and thanks for having me on. Hugh, I just think that we've been through this before. We're going to go through it again. We've got so many things that we've got to get done, and he's got so much momentum. The partisan politics, this is just going to keep going and going and going. We're just going to get stuck in the mud, and I just don't think it brings our country together. For us,
well, it's not bringing our country together, but I did write tomorrow's Fox News column about a new legislative agenda, which ought to be education, 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 because he did everything. I mean, he's done everything he ran on. He closed the border. He's doing the deportations. He bombed the Iranian nuclear sites. He got the taxes extended and expanded. He got school choice in there. We've got NPR and PBS defunded. The schools are on notice, and they're being prosecuted under the Civil Rights Act. By the way, Columbia expelled or suspended 80 students today because they got the message, and every college in the world is going to do the same thing now. We're winning. And we got to keep winning. But I do worry about the FBI and the CIA. We need them to be straightened out. They cannot be corrupt.
Well, we got people at the heads of both of those to straighten them out.
Well, that's why John Ratcliffe did the original referral of Brennan to the DOJ. That is, he's a serious man. He was a United States attorney for the ED of Texas, and he would not have done that had he not been persuaded on the facts that John Brennan lied to Congress. It's not up for him to make the prosecutorial decision, but I hope they make it rapidly. What Tulsi Gabbard is doing is simply responding to the aftermath of that and the attempt to cloud what Ratcliffe did. Thank you, Lawton. Don in L.A., what do you think, Don?
Hugh, I'm so happy they're finally going to try to get to the bottom of this. Not for partisan reasons, but because of this was a monumental travesty of an abuse of the Intelligence Service, Department of Justice, everything for political means by the Obama administration and the Hillary campaign. I've never heard of anything like this in American history, where a sitting president tries to use all those instruments to undermine the campaign of someone who's running against one of his former subordinates.
It's worse than that, Don. Trying to undermine the presidency of his successor who won in a landslide. Now, it was a shock. He lost the popular vote, but he won in the constitutional majority in the college, electoral college. And so the whole idea of the peaceful transition of power is not merely smiling at the inauguration. It's not undermining with a time bomb and a Steele dossier and false testimony. So I really do think we have to make sure future CIA directors, presidents, and DNIs know we're not going to prosecute presidents. I don't want to do that. I don't want to summon former First Lady Jill Biden to testify. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to break any norms. But CIA directors have got to be held accountable for what they did and did not do and what they encouraged and allowed to happen. And I believe completely that Mr. Brennan, if he lied to Congress, should be prosecuted. Thank you, Don. Bill in Los Angeles.
Hey, Hugh, I'm a former reporter at Columbia J School 86, and I encountered...
Don't discredit yourself. Columbia J School, don't discredit yourself.
Hamas days. I encountered Watergate prankster Donald Segretti on a story in the early 80s, and as you know, he spent years in federal prison for a lot less than what Team Obama is accused of.
Oh, yeah, and so did a lot of other people. And the equities do not run towards Republicans and their crimes. I don't know what these people did yet. I'm not convicting anyone. I want the Brennan thing investigated quickly. That's all. That's all I want. Not too much. You agree, Bill?
For sure. Let's just have the facts.
Yeah, get a ruling from the DOJ. If they're not going to prosecute, I got a friend, Ricardo. He runs a little Cuban hot dog stand and golf range. He used to be a pretty good prosecutor. And I'm pretty sure I can read his mind right now as he swings and steals from people by asking for strokes. I'm an old guy and he gets strokes from them, but he's a pretty good prosecutor. And my bet is that he's going to say, you don't comment if there's no case. And in this case, if the DOJ finds there's no case about Mr. Brennan, they ought to say no charge will be filed and nothing else. And that will end it. It should end it. Everything else is just noise. But if there is a case to be made, I want the indictment to be made by DOJ, not the FBI director, not Kash Patel, like Comey did when he made his announcements, went off to... I'll ask Ricardo what he thinks when he gets his cigar. And it's busy during the summer at the Cuban hot dog stand, but I got to catch up with him. Ozzy is with us no more. So we're playing some Ozzy music along with Billy Joel music as bumps today. I want to go back to the White House presser today. Carolyn Levitt had this to say about the media and Russia, cut number 3.
We have even more damning evidence implicating those who tried to sabotage a duly elected president and did grave material harm to our republic. Thanks to additional important work done by CIA Director Ratcliffe, Committee Chairman Rick Crawford over the past few months, a newly declassified 2020 report prepared by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which DNI Director Gabbard has declassified, found that the intel community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect President Trump in 2016. And in fact, Russia was actively preparing for a Hillary Clinton victory. But at the unusual direction of Barack Obama at the time, the intel community published implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise. Why? To sabotage the incoming president. This is truly one of the greatest political scandals in American history. And reporters at legacy outlets, some of which are sitting in this room today, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, were ridiculously awarded Pulitzer Prizes for their perpetuation of this hoax. It's well past time for those awards to be stripped from the journalists who receive them. It is not journalism.
Thank you, Carolyn. That's exactly right. Now, I'm laughing because at the same time that I'm playing that clip, McNeil, who's one of the greatest, absolutely, reflog_18, REFLOG_18, Browns fan. And they unveiled a new helmet today at the Lakeside. It's called the new Alpha Dog, DAWG helmet. And they're out on a raft on Lake Erie, in front of the stadium. I don't know. Harley, I just reposted it. If you can go find it on my X account, we'll play it. A guy falls off of the raft.
I didn't even know you were into photography.
The guy falls off of the raft. It's like a It's got 2.8 million views because it came. McNeil gives Curveball a. We're showing it on the Salem News Channel right now. It's like the Browns. Did they actually intend that to happen?
I'm sure that's good luck in Haiti.
Can you show that again? Just put that on a reel. I cannot tell you. Oh, the guy falls off the raft who unveils the helmet. One of the people. I don't know if it's a guy or a gal. God bless him. Nothing more Browns than that. No siree. They throw him a life jacket. Oh, McNeil, you've done it again. All right. The American Legislative Exchange Council is a great sponsor of this show. And I would like them to draft a bill for all the 50 states to require that the Browns be given 10 points by every team in the NFL whenever they play in there. Oh, we found more of it. Play that one again. I haven't seen that yet. I want an investigation from Alec as to why Cleveland is cursed. The Browns are cursed. There's got to be an American Legislative Exchange Council study on this. They study everything. John Williams studies everything. They do rich states, poor states. I wonder if they include in rich states, poor states, the state of the professional franchises in the rankings. Ohio's always down below that state up north because John is from that state up north, and I think he manipulates the rankings. But head over there. West Virginia, by the way, is taking the lead in securing state elections in 2025. They just passed 5 new laws, explicitly require U.S. citizenship vote for voting at every level of government. Got to show an ID to prevent non-citizens from voting. Keep voter rolls current by flagging inactive voters after 2 years rather than 4. They banned ranked choice voting, which is a blessing on all of us. It's a nightmare. It's cooked up by the left to steal elections. And it requires municipal elections be held on the same day as your statewide primary. That's why you got to get the State of the State newsletter from Alec, alec.org/Hugh. Or go to richstatespoorstates.com. But when John's on here next, we're going to talk about the Browns and the fact that there's a pro-Lions bias in rich states, poor states. Also, I want to tell you about, I don't have enough time. We'll just watch this video a few more times. If you're not watching the Salem News Channel, you get to hear me laugh, but you cannot see me why I'm laughing. And Harley somehow dug up a second angle on this, which is even funny. Oh, the poor Browns. That's like an omen, except when William the Conqueror in 1066, right? He lands in England, he falls on his face, and he grabs the sand to turn a bad omen into good omen and says, I possess the England, or something like that. I don't think we're going to get any good omen out of this thing. I can't stop laughing because more and more videos emerging of the Browns helmet unveiling. Andrew Barry has got to be sitting at his desk with his head in his hands. Andrew Barry is the general manager of the Browns. Jimmy Haslam, Dee Haslam, the owners. They're probably just sitting in a conference room wondering who in the organization decided that Dude Wipes would be a sponsor, and who came up with that helmet, who fell off the barge, and how did the mascot learn to throw?
Couldn't
Why
complete
does he
the
throw
pass.
like
Couldn't complete the pass.
Couldn't complete the pass. And I'm just glad they weren't further out in the lake when the one of the crew fell in. It's gonna, you'll see it for a few days. It's among the more Browns things ever. It's never gonna quite be Red Rover 88 or the fumble or the drive or the quarterback jersey. There's a lot that goes into being a Browns fan that you have to be my age to appreciate. I can't remember 1964. They won the National Football League championship then, and for many years prior to then, they were among the storied franchises in the old NFL. They've had a bit of a rough patch since 1999, but I think they're turning it around. If they can get Judkins out of the clink on a, and it's not as bad as it sounds, maybe they'll get a little bit of but the guards have won, I think, 9 out of 11, and they're back to 50-50 ball, and they're only 9 behind the Tigers, and they're not in the wild card hunt yet, but they're close. So I'm not giving up on that. This is Selena Zito's book, Butler, and it's fabulous. But this is a shout out to my friends in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm on Talk Erie, and thank you for having me on Talk Erie. Trumbull County went 58. That's my home county. I'm from Trumbull County. 58-42 for Trump. Ashtabula County went 63% for him. Mahoning went 54% for him. These are all old, deep blue counties, right? When I was growing up, never voted for a Democrat, other than a Democrat. In the border counties, Crawford went 69% for Trump. Mercer went 62% for Trump. Lawrence went 66% for Trump. Beaver County went 59.5% for Trump. Washington County went 62% for Trump. Greene County went 71% for Trump. Pittsburgh, of course, is not a border county. Pittsburgh is full of Yinzers, and they voted for Harris by 60%, almost 60%. But Erie County, home of Camp Notre Dame, camp of my youth, went 50-49 for Trump. So it is clear I won Pennsylvania for the president because I was on Talk Erie during the election in the mornings live. Now I've moved to the afternoons. I think I'm on tape delayed on Talk Erie, but I love Erie. It may be the most important bellwether county in the country, Erie, Pennsylvania. I'll talk to Selena about that at length tomorrow. Wonderful book. Go and order it as soon as you can. Go and get it as soon as you can. I also want to ask all of you to consider Texas and helping Texas out. There's a Help Texas banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. The Salem platforms have raised more than $200,000, including this wonderful audience throwing in tens of thousands of dollars, usually in $50 increments, $50, $100, $150, $200, because $50 is another box of supplies that gets shipped down and goes immediately to the San Antonio Distribution Center and into the Hill Country where it is needed. Thank you. The devastation down there is extraordinary. You can call 855-359-4673. We always allow Food for the Poor to sponsor campaigns like this because we trust and know Food for the Poor. I read today a horrific story about the big charity concert for the victims of the fires in California in January, and the money didn't go to them. It went to crazy NGOs all over the state, but didn't go to the victims. I know Food for the Poor, the money that you raise by going to HughHewitt.com and clicking on that, or by calling the phone number, which is 855-359-4673, goes right to the victims. Because Food for the Poor, you can trust them. You can absolutely trust them. Now, I also want to play for you a little bit of Mike Johnson today, blistering at a House presser the lie that the House is going on recess in order to stop the Epstein files from coming out. Just obsessed, the press now. Cut number 7.
You may have seen a false headline in the New York Times, and the headline was terribly misleading. It said House Republicans are, quote, adjourning until September to avoid a vote on releasing Epstein materials. I just want you to know, and everybody here knows, that's an outright lie. It's not true. And they were forced to modify their headline and update it today. The reason is, we all know that's the initial lie travels much faster than the truth, and so we're making sure that people know what is actually going on here. I think every single one
Speaker
of your publications
Johnson,
have known
New York
that
Times had to change it. I'm glad you got that out there. I talked to Andrew Del Rey today because before my adventure with the desk, I had linked into the Zoom call for my Bible study, of which Andrew Del Rey is a member. And look, AndrewandTodd.com are a sponsor of the show, but they sponsor the show because thousands of you have done mortgages with them, including me and Dwayne. They are a bank. Sierra Pacific Mortgage is a bank, and Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian are bankers, and they underwrite your loan. And when you call 888-1172, you're talking with one of them or one of their very small team of experts. And they get all your information. They tell you how much you can afford to borrow and what it's going to cost, and they get you the best rate. And they walk through it. They walk through it every step of the way with you, and they'll get you the best rate that you can get. And they'll give you the best advice that you can get. Sometimes they'll tell you you can't have the house you want because it's too much for you to borrow. You'll be house poor and catastrophic. They don't let you make bad decisions. But I was getting into the studio. I was going to Zoom call into my Bible study. We're reading Bishop Barron's if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you'll recognize this book, Bishop Robert Barron's The Great Story of Israel. It's a fabulous book. In fact, I'm astonished by how smart this guy is. Bishop Barron is so smart. And it may be the best commentary I've ever read on the Old Testament or Scripture. But Andrew was on the phone afterwards, and he was talking to me about it. I'll tell you more after the break. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. I blame Andrew for the catastrophe that befell my studio because no one was on the call at the right time. And so I decided during that period of time, I blame Dwayne, I blame Carl, I blame Harley and Adam because they didn't warn me about this, and I blame Andrew Del Rey for what happened this morning. Of course, I did nothing wrong. Let me tell you, coming up in hour 3, I'm going to replay Tulsi Gabbard because everyone should hear it, and you may not have heard it in the first hour, and you ought to hear it. I'm going to do that. Now I want to finish the story. Had a catastrophe, in case you just got in your car, had a catastrophe in the studio today because of Andrew Del Rey. And my other Bible study friends. We're reading Bishop Barron's book, The Great Story of Israel. Fabulous book. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And I've read a lot of books about Scripture over the years, but Bishop Barron, it's an extraordinary book. But it starts at 10:30 in the 7:30 out west. It's my old Bible study, but now they do it by Zoom. So I said, well, can I be back in? And they said, sure. And they, they're Christians, so they had to let me in. And I came down and I Zoomed in at 10:30. And Rick is there and Andrew, Rick's not there and Dennis isn't there. And no one's there. Andrew, usually on time. He was the first to show up, but I got there on time, 10:30. A little bit earlier there. It's 7:30 on the West Coast. And I sit down and no one's there. And I send an email. Are we on? I'm thinking maybe it got canceled or something. And that's when I begin to think I could raise this studio by myself. I really could. Look at everything. I could raise this by myself. So I go about adding one of these things to the one that was already there. Unfortunately, gravity applies up north, just like it does out in California. Everything fell off. Everything went. Everything on this table, onto the floor. Remarkably, I put it back together again. Then, after I'd done that, it took me 25 minutes or so to get once everything was off the desk, it was pretty easy to get it up. Then put everything back. Then they showed up. So I'm really quite amazed that it took them that long to show up, but that I blame them as well. But Andrew and I, when Andrew showed up first, ahead of anybody else, I said, Andrew, is it true that if interest rates go down, the 30-year will go up? He said, oh, yeah. Yep, that's true. But home rates will go down. Don't wait. Either way. You don't know. You can't wait. Just go to andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. Let me close the hour by, again, asking all of you to please listen to Tulsi Gabbard when I come back. Don't go anywhere. If you haven't heard her yet, I play an uninterrupted 10.5-minute clip of DNI Gabbard. And the reason I'm playing it is because CNN cut in as soon as she mentioned Obama. Cut number 2.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th...
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing...
On December 5th, President Obama told him to do it again. So CNN stepped in just in time to keep President Obama off the air. Coincidence? Some people think not. Listen to Tulsi Gabbard coming up. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, took to the White House podium today for what might be the most extraordinary 10 minutes I can remember. Here they are.
I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts, using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome. This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. That leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming president.
That is remarkable. Sending Ozzy off and saluting Billy Joel about the new HBO documentary about him. It's been one of those days you don't see things coming. First thing I see this morning on X, I have an order. I read news items first. John Ellis puts out news items every morning at 6 a.m. Summary of the news, the real news. Objective, comprehensive, and new stuff I didn't know and very well presented. Then I check the Journal and the Financial Times. Then I check my direct messages. Then I look at my emails if I have time. And then I look at X. First thing I see on X is the Pope is out. Now, this intrigues me because I wrote about the Pope on Tuesday for Fox News. And I had to write a column this morning, which I did. And it's not about the Pope, but it is. I got a lot of comments on the Pope column yesterday. And the Pope did a walkabout. He's on vacation at Castle, whatever they call that place, di Gandolfo. And he comes out and he sees a line of Chicago Bears fans. Now, Pope's from Chicago. I expect them to understand. And they're wearing a T-shirt, Da Pope, as in Da Bears. Chicagoland gets it. Every football fan gets it. They have a real team there. Browns fans even get it. So the Pope walks over and congratulates, takes the T-shirt, gives it to his buddy, and they wander off. It's a nice clip. It's in my timeline on X if you want to see it. It's fun. I like Leo. I like Pope Leo a lot. Who can't like him? I mean, he doesn't say anything yet. There's nothing to be mad about. Da Pope. So then I come down for my Bible study at 10:30 Eastern Time and head to the studio. The studio's been rebuilt. Beautiful studio. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you can see it. And nobody's there. Absolutely nobody is there. And Jeff isn't there. Dennis isn't there. Rick isn't there. Larry's not there. And Andrew, who's usually on time, isn't there. Andrew as in Andrew and DelRey.com. So I'm sitting, I'm on the Zoom call, waiting to talk to these guys about Bishop Barron's book. And I look around, I say, I can't stand this anymore because I can't get underneath the desk because the camera was built and placed by Dwayne so high, I had to get a new chair, and the desk was so low I couldn't get underneath it. So I bought 4 risers, and the 4 risers were not enough. That's the desk. That's the studio desk. And the studio, that's the riser that it was on. And I began to think, I wonder, I had extra risers. I had 4 extra risers. I began to wonder, what if I just add a riser on each of the riser? And the desk is very heavy and it's wooden, and I think I can do this by myself if I use my back and I don't lift it. Now, I've got a back that just got over being screwed up. And so I put 1 riser under, and the desk tilts a little bit. And then I do the second one, and then everything falls off of the desk. There's still no one in the Zoom call, by the way. If anyone had been on time, it would not have happened to me. And then I had to reassemble everything, get it done. Then Tulsi comes out with this banger of a 10-minute clip, and the media melts down, and people like Lois Romano, lefty at Politico, formerly with The Post, starts talking about the Epstein files, about which there is no evidence of anything. There's innuendo that his name's in the files, but there is no list. There's nothing there. And when something comes out that you can actually believe, I'll pay attention to it. But they're not going to release what they have because it's child porn and because it's grand jury testimony, and there are rules about that, and the court's already ruled that. There is no story there. There's no there. No there. No list, nothing. So when something shows up, if any ever, and it's never going to show up because it's not there, I'll treat it the way I am now treating the Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe referrals of Brennan and the commentary on President Obama and what is apparent to me to have been A, a cover-up of Secretary Clinton's actual health, and B, a conspiracy to undermine the president-elect before he arrives in office. Big story. But it all goes by the wayside because of McNeil. McNeil is my favorite, absolute favorite sports account on X. If you want to follow, it's for Browns fans primarily, and he throws in some Cavs and guards. Reflog_18, is that what it is? Reflog_18. And he is very funny. Capital REFLOG_18. Why did he come up with that? I don't know. He's the guy that originally promised to put together a parade if the Browns went 0-16. And he did. And it was funny. He's merciless, but he's funny. So today, right as my show enters into the serious stuff about Tulsi Gabbard, McNeil posts a video of the new Browns Alpha helmet, which is ugly as can be. And the unveiling is sponsored by Dude Wipes. I kid you not. I don't know who's running marketing for the Browns, but the Haslams want to sit down with them and say, not really something we want to go viral. Any event, Dude Wipes sponsors the 2025 Alpha helmet, which they're doing on a barge at the lake for some reason. And one of the staff falls off of the barge into Lake Erie, which is like Huey, one of the old Browns coaches, diving in if we went 0-16. He promised to do so, and he did. The guy falls into the lake, and then the worst part is the mascot throws him a life jacket, and he misses him by a mile left. It's like watching Deshaun Watson throw every time last year. So McNeil puts this up just as I'm trying to get into my program, and I can't stop watching this. I've watched it 100 times. Then Harley surprises me by doing a second shot, has appeared on the media, beyond the McNeil shot, with a full of the guy going in. Then the barge floats off into the lake. You can't make this stuff up. Browns fans, you know what I'm talking about. You can't make up the jersey. You can't make up the fumble. You can't make up the drive. You can't make up Red Right 88. You can't make any of this stuff up. So it just blew up. Everything blew up today. That's okay. We don't care because I've got consumercellular.com. So I'm able to call my boys who are Browns fans, and consumercellular.com, you don't have to sacrifice savings for service. You can have both. You can call right now, Consumer Cellular, and find out how much money you can save. But before you do that, do me a favor, go get your cell phone bill. And if you can't find it, that's a bad sign. If it's online, if you're paying online, that's a bad sign. You never look at what you're getting. You don't know how much you're paying. You don't know how much data you're paying for. Consumer Cellular, you call it 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Or you can go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. And you'll get a special deal if you mention Hugh25. You'll get $5 off each of your first 5 monthly invoices. But what they will do when you call 1-800-411-4454 or go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, remember, mention Hugh25 when you call. What they will do is walk through how much data are you using, how much do you need. If you need unlimited data and you're over 50, you get 2 lines, old numbers. You keep all your contacts, keep your numbers if you want, or get new ones, new devices, all that good stuff. $60 a month, 2 lines, unlimited data. But you probably don't need unlimited data. You probably only need 5 gigs or 10 gigs. Don't get hosed by Big Cellular. Go to consumercellular.com. They'll complete the pass, unlike the Browns mascot. When I come back, more Glenn Youngkin talking about Japanese trade deal today. Important stuff.
You may have seen a false headline in the New York Times, and the headline was terribly misleading. It said House Republicans are, quote, adjourning until September to avoid a vote on releasing Epstein materials. I just want you to know, and everybody here knows, that's an outright lie. It's not true. And they were forced to modify their headline and update it today.
Welcome back, America. That was Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today. I'm joined by Sarah Bedford. She is chief investigative reporter at the Washington Examiner. Sarah, I really don't understand what is going on here. So you know Congress. What is Mike Johnson talking about? What tricks are the Dems up to get the attention off of Donald Trump's string of wins?
Well, Democrats have a coordinated strategy going sort of committee by committee to introduce Epstein-related amendments to all types of totally unrelated pieces of legislation to try to get Republicans on record in this uncomfortable position of either crossing Trump or voting against transparency for the Epstein files. This is obviously not something Democrats ever cared about for the years when a Democratic president was in the White House and could have also initiated a transparency process related to the Epstein files. So this is solely about worsening the divisions in the Republican Party right now over Epstein. But this sort of flurry of amendment strategy is something Democrats are doing to try to jam up Republicans.
All right, now explain something for me. The Biden Justice Department weaponized everything they could, and they also got the Manhattan DA and the Atlanta DA to bring nonsense charges against Donald Trump, and they got the Attorney General of New York to bring ridiculous cases against him. So really, they did everything they could. Would they not have leaked the Epstein files if it was damning to Donald Trump at all? I just do reason. Wouldn't that have happened?
I mean, common sense would tell you yes, right? They found a way to leak his tax returns. They leaked the Access Hollywood tape. Every little thing that Donald Trump has ever said or done, true or otherwise, has been leaked in an effort to try to get this man, if not behind bars, certainly out of office. And so I do think that conventional wisdom suggests that had there been any sort of substantial link between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, at this point, it would have come out. The reason there was so much outrage over the phase one binders that Pam Bondi gave to the influencers is because there is so much already in the public domain about Epstein. It's one of the most well-known cases in the world that there are many, many internet sleuths who would have uncovered where this sort of link is supposed to be hidden if it existed.
People also forget there was massive civil litigation on behalf of the victims against the Epstein estate, and everyone who participated, he would have gotten nailed there. So this is common sense. So I get what the Dems are doing. What I don't get is that journalists are giving it credence. Now, Director Gabbard, what's your take on her announcement, which I've played twice in its entirety today because I think it's significant, and I haven't paid much attention to Russia for a few years, but now I'm really keyed in on Brennan and what he did and didn't do, because John Ratcliffe is a serious man, former federal prosecutor, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Texas. He would not do that unless he was concerned. What'd you make of the Gabbard announcement?
It's incredibly significant. I think it's one of the most significant things that we've ever learned about the Russia investigation. And the reason for that is what we see from the declassified Ratcliffe memo and now the two disclosures from Gabbard is that it was becoming clear to the intelligence community after Trump won that Putin didn't actually try to help Trump win the election. That was actually maybe never his intent and not what he was doing at all by interfering in the US elections. But if the intelligence community had said that, if that had been entered into the general understanding of what was going on, then the entire collusion narrative falls apart. Trump can't collude with Russia.
What about the comments about Secretary Clinton and drugs? That was really wild.
Right. I mean, just those on its face, but also the fact that Russia had all that dirt and didn't release it directly contradicts this idea that Russia was ever trying to help Trump win. And if they weren't trying to help Trump win, then there was nothing to collude on. There was no way that Trump could have colluded on an election stealing effort that never actually happened. So what it looks like occurred is that Obama directed that the reality, the truth be buried, that Putin never tried to help Trump win the election, and intelligence was fabricated to lay the foundation for the collusion investigation to go on for years. That is so serious. And I think the dismissal of this by the rest of the legacy media is frankly kind of shameful, given that when the previous DNI under Obama and other intelligence community officials were saying these sorts of things to them 2016, 2017, 2018, they reprinted it without question. Now those same agencies are coming forth and they don't
Do you
trust
know
them.
Lois Romano?
I do not.
Lois was a lefty at the Post and Politico. As soon as I announced on X that I was going to play the Gabbard tape, she said, "What about the Epstein files?" She quote tweeted me. It's like nuts. It's like the legacy media's lost their minds.
Well, right, because they've had, 20 years to be interested in the Epstein story, which started in Florida with the DOJ investigation. They have no interest in this, particularly because it implicates Democrats, too. I mean, Bill Clinton is far more, intertwined with Epstein's circle than Donald Trump ever was.
Well
they are
said.
only interested because of
Sarah C. Bedford, follow her on X. Always good to see you. I learned today on the Commentary podcast that there's a brand new Billy Joel documentary. Part 1 came out. And J-Pod taught me a lot about Billy Joel, and they really recommended it highly, so Fetchimus Hewitt and I are going to watch it tonight. I want to remind everyone about Food for the Poor, great Christian relief organization that often sponsors drives for specific catastrophes, and they are doing it right now. This audience has been so generous, thank you, but we need to raise more because the need is endless there. It's just so terrible. Sally Hernandez, the sheriff of Travis County, quote, "Words fall short. when trying to describe the devastation the flood caused. These communities are hurting. It's been our goal to serve and protect them to the best of our ability. We remain committed to that mission, and we remain committed to Food for the Poor, helping the people in Kerrville and wherever that flood destroyed everything. $50 sends another box of supplies. You can contribute 50 or 100 or 500 or 1,000 or 25,000, whatever you can. You can do it via the link at the top of hughhewitt.com. It just says Help Texas. $5 is fine too. Get in the game. You can also call 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. Or you can text Hewitt to 51555, Hewitt, H-E-W-I-T, to 51555, and they'll send you a link and you can contribute that way. I want to make sure I play for you Steve Hilton, who, if God blesses California, Steve Hilton will be the next governor. And he did a great social media post today, cut number 17.
I'm at Burbank Airport, Guy Fieri's bar. Just had some really interesting news. And it comes courtesy of all people, Katie Porter, who is running for governor of California, just like I am. And here's an email that I just saw from Katie Porter. Here it is. Katie Porter for governor. I just want to read you this email. It says, "We wanted to make sure you didn't miss the new poll that came out this week measuring the California governor race. The bad news, it shows Republican Steve Hilton, a former Fox News host, leading the race. The good news, Katie is the top polling Democrat and only behind Steve by 1 point. I don't know, maybe I would flip the good and the bad news, but I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you who have put me in that position. It's early, there's a long way to go, there's a lot of work still to do, but I just have to tell you, I'm loving being out there, meeting every single one of you, seeing what energy there is for change in California, and according to Katie Porter at least, so far, so good. See you soon, everyone."
So far, so good. Steve Hilton is a killer on social media. He really knows how to work it. I'm beginning to let my optimism about a California turnaround rise a little bit, just a little bit. Maybe California's had it with the catastrophe that the state is. Speaking about Republicans coming out of nowhere to win, Glenn Youngkin was on Fox News today, cut number 8 about the deal with Japan.
All right, President Trump yesterday announcing a historic $550 billion trade agreement with Japan, the president's economic wins, getting the attention of some major international corporations. Drug maker AstraZeneca just confirmed investing $50 billion in Virginia, making that commitment. Let's bring in Glenn Youngkin, governor of the Commonwealth. It's great to have you with us this morning, Governor. Thanks for being here. The White House, interestingly, sharing...
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir. The White House sharing some new details with us on this Japan trade agreement this morning that I think will obviously impact your state a great deal. They're telling us Japan is committed to buying 100 Boeing aircraft, $8 billion in agricultural products from the United States, and boosting defense spending with U.S. firms from $14 to $17 billion annually.
Yeah, this is a giant trade deal that we've all been waiting for, knew was in the works. And let me tell you, $550 billion of increased opportunity for Virginia companies, for American companies, but investment in the United States that will come with it as well. I am particularly pleased to see this commitment to buy American products, to reduce trade barriers. And let me just tell you, agriculture is a big part of this deal, and Virginia's largest private industry is agriculture. We expect to see our defense companies benefit from this, pharmaceutical investment coming into the United States, semiconductor investment coming into the United States, supply chains for advanced manufacturing coming to the United States. This is exactly what President Trump's trade strategy has been all about. And I'll tell you, when we saw the deal cut with the United Kingdom, I was in the offices of AstraZeneca the next day talking about investing in the United States. And this week we saw this just landmark commitment from AstraZeneca to put $50 billion into manufacturing in the United States, with the largest piece of that multi-billion-dollar investment into the Commonwealth of Virginia. These trade negotiations are benefiting Americans. They're benefiting American investment. And Virginia is really being a big winner here.
I think Glenn Youngkin is the model for Steve Hilton, someone who knows business very well, knows how to communicate, knows how to stick on a message. Steve Hilton is messaging every day, every day, every day. California's huge. Now, I'm on in every market in California in noon to 3. So from every major market, there's the Hugh Hewitt Show. So I want everyone listening in your car right now, and if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, I want you to know you can help Steve Hilton by being a volunteer. You can send him a contribution at SteveHiltonForGovernor.com, SteveHiltonForGovernor.com. Follow him on X, Steve Hilton X on X, Steve Hilton X on X. Get involved in the game. And don't forget, I'm in the Relief Factor studio, which may have crashed and burned on me today, but I rebuilt it by myself. Unfortunately, it's Dwayne's fault and it's Andrew Del Rey's fault. But Relief Factor will fix my back after I had to lift this incredible set by myself, solo. Should never have really done it. It was a dumb thing. But that's when you really do get the minor aches and pains that plague you when you do a dumb thing like trying to lift the desk in the studio by yourself. So take the Relief Factor every day, and the back strain that goes with that stupid move will go away soon. Maybe the guy who fell in the lake, I can send him some Relief Factor at the Browns helmet unveiling. All you have to do, though, is call 1-800-4 and the word relief, 1-800-4 and the word relief, or go to their website, relieffactor.com, and find the starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day. He needs the Relief Factor, don't you think? relieffactor.com. I'm going to close my program with an excerpt from Carolyn Leavitt, White House press secretary, at the podium today. And you'll be able to tell tomorrow whether or not your newspaper or whatever you read online is lefty dominated. Because this statement that she makes is a stunner. Cut number 5.
On another matter, over the past few days, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has unveiled shocking new evidence that former President Barack Obama and top aides in the Obama administration conspired to subvert President Trump's 2016 election victory and undermine the democratic will of the American people, while publicly pretending...
Stop right there. That's all you need to hear. That's the lead. Do you know how extraordinary a statement that is for the White House press secretary to make? Now, left-wing journos, and I mean that, left-wing journos don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to DNI Gabbard. They do anything. One of them is online barking at me, shouting, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. And I'm just not going to pay attention to Lois Romano anymore. She's got TDS. And if anyone says in response to that statement by the White House press secretary, Epstein, 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 it's just a diagnosis of TDS. Focus on the statement. Shocking new evidence that President Obama and top aides conspired to undermine President Trump's election victory and the will of the American people. If that turns out to be true, and there was today a release by the Department of Justice that they are putting together a strike force to investigate the implications of it. There's also the Ratcliffe referral. John Ratcliffe, director of the CIA, referred a study by the CIA's professional staff finding that John Brennan manipulated the intelligence and commandeered the process to reach the conclusion so he could sabotage the Trump administration. Do you see how they were destabilized? I think they momentarily lost their mind and crimes were committed if John Ratcliffe is right. And John Ratcliffe was the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Texas before he became the DNI himself and is now the head of the Central Intelligence Agency. The very, very serious thing. It is a thing about which you ought to be concerned because White House press secretaries do not do that. They don't make statements like that. DNIs do not go to the podium and do for 10 minutes what Tulsi Gabbard did. Anyone who wants to diminish this is invested in the opposite story. They were wrong. Jeff Zelny, cut number 17, CNN. Listen to this.
We have no idea. I mean, this is hardly information that we should even be repeating. Never mind that it's, some years after the fact, 8 years more than that after the fact, but also just to look at the source. But look, this is the what the White House wants
look
to.
At the source. She's the director of national intelligence. She was confirmed by the Senate. We shouldn't even be repeating something from the front of the White House? People who ran with Russia, and the Steele dossier? Are you kidding me? No wonder CNN is in the dumper. They got some great people there, but they let their TDS just go completely wild. They're as bad at the news as the Browns are at PR events, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Harley. Thank you, Adam. Dwayne, you sabotaged me with this studio, buddy. There it goes, floating off into the sunset. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, the Browns helmet from Dude Wipes. I can't believe it.